So my mom has a saying, or I guess it's a common saying, that all men are dogs. And I was just thinking about it a little bit more. Um, I've made a comment before about how, or I've had an intuition about how, um, I think women are like the duality of the princess and the dragon. I think I wrote about this in one of my blogs, and I was thinking about and and then like so men are also like take longer to mature, so they're more childish for much longer, it seems. um and women, we just kind of innately know when we're uh matured, I suppose, at a different. I think women are more able to tell when we are matured, right? At least in a certain kind of way, like mentally. That's what I mean. So I think that there's a big issue in our culture, in this world, in this whole world, about this imbalance of sexuality and maturity and trauma with that. So someone made a comment on Twitter earlier that kind of triggered me and a lot of people, I'm sure, because it was like, it was something horrible. It was like, you're a virgin, you never had sex, and it was like, when's the first time you ever had sex? And I was like, oop. So, and then like it's mentioned all the time about sexual trauma. People, so many people will talk about being sexually abused and or taken advantage of by either sex. I mean, of course, primarily it's men, because men are the ones who are seem to be least in control of their sexual impulses. It seems that seems to be the case for the most part, because I mean, I don't fully understand why men are like this or like that. I think it does have a lot to do with upbringing, of course, and a part of it is part of the culture. And I feel like a lot of people are shifting blame on each other and just, not that it's bad to talk about our, um, our traumas and get to not digest it, but, deal with it and figure out how we can move past it, because, regardless of whether, it happened and now we have to deal with the psychological impact it's had on us. And for me personally, I just think we just have to, I mean, my thing is to give it up to God and move past it and work to make it so it doesn't happen anymore. But to not make it happen anymore, it has to be talked about very honestly. Um, Honestly, it's how you say, like, honestly, the issue of men, I think, is no one's. It's been mentioned before. Like, men don't have a sort of initiation into maturity like women do. Like, women, we have a physical thing that happens to us. We get our menstruation, and that shows our body is physically ready or physically matured, at least, or is entering those stages. Um, but for men, it's kind of like they just grow, and then they don't realize the the power that they have within them, like their aggression and their, primarily the aggression, and I'm raising a boy, so I do think about this a lot, like, and I'm a little girl, so I can see just looking at the dynamic of how, they're just growing up as they are. And I try to, I try to be as, what's that word I want to use? I don't want to force my children to be anything they want to be. I just try to do my best to make sure that they are, knowledgeable about these things and understand, my philosophy that, we're common humans, or we're all humans together on this earth, and we have to treat each other properly. I don't want to raise my children with hate of any kind or bias of any kind. Or rather they figure things out for themselves if they want to. I'd rather they not be hateful or biased in kind of way, but I want them to know that I don't want to teach them that, period. Even though there are people out there who are currently raising their kids to be hateful little monsters, that's going to backfire when the kid grows up and realize they didn't have to be hateful, or their parents were so hateful that they put it onto them, or that, I can't see myself doing that to children. Like, why would you do that to a kid? Why would you teach a child how to hate? Even if you were full of hate your whole life, and you shouldn't have children if you feel that way, honestly. But if you are full of hate and you have a kid, don't teach that child to hate, please. There's enough hate and anger and pain in this world. Don't give that to that child. And then there are people who are so hurt, they don't pay attention to what they're doing to their children. Or, they're so, we also have the issue of the state being involved in getting their hands in people's, families and ruining them as well. But, just focus back on the real issue. It's like, we need to be raising children just with love, period. And without forcing anything on them. Let children be children. Let them grow up. But the important part is to, teach them how to socialize with each other. Teach them that, even though we are different, some of us are, we are all individuals and we're all different. That doesn't take away from who you are as a person, who anyone else is as a person. And, to respect boundaries and to learn from each other and, all the good stuff. So when I think about the issue of sexual trauma and how it's gone so unaddressed, like, we also have this, there's a deeper issue about people kidnapping children and whatever. Well, I'll get to that. But how do we deal with sexual trauma in our civilization without spreading more of it, basically, or without being, doing this blame game of everything as well? Because, I blame the devil. People get possessed by the devil. That seems to be like the biggest thing. That's what I feel like. I think it's just pure evil to abuse anyone, period. But, especially a child who's innocent. Like, how do you in your right, you can't be in your right mind to sully the innocence of a child. So, I think that's the first way to look at it. There's some research I'm going to look into about that. Like, Angela Davis was talking about a Japanese American woman. I forgot her name right now, but she did interviews with jailed up child molesters. I'm going to be looking that up next because I think that is that's important information to know. Like, we can't just wait for someone to commit a crime, or we can't wait for someone to hurt someone in any kind of way and then try to punish them for it without figuring out why it happens. And people want to say, why should you question it? It's like, so you can prevent it from happening again. Like, that's the whole point of passing down stories, right? Like, obviously if you do this and this and this, you raise a monster. So you should do things not to raise monsters, right? Or turn people into monsters. Because like we don't want to end up in a position where we end up being extra paranoid where we can't even be honest with each other because we're too afraid to be demonized or like for just asking questions or just trying to make sure of things. We don't want to hurt others with accusations either. Especially when it comes to like the sensitive topic of sexuality. And even though our culture is so saturated with sexuality, it's blurring the lines and it's making it even more dangerous for children, honestly. Like right now, like all this stuff about blah blah blah, all this nonsense about people are projecting their adult sexuality on the children, and that is so unhealthy. Like that is so dangerous. Like I can't even, like, goodness, like you can't implant those ideas into children's minds and think it's going to be processed the way you think it's going to be processed. It just creates an unhealthy, it's an unhealthy mindset to think that children need to know all the ins and outs about sexuality when these are things we discover on our own as we grow, right? Like if we didn't want someone to impose their sexuality on us as children, we shouldn't do it to other children because we're a certain way now. Like it just makes sense to be like that. Like but children have to grow. Like I was saying, like I always say, like we're growing on this planet, so we have to learn about ourselves and grow in an honest light that lets us blossom fully in a way, naturally. Just don't put your GMO fertilizer on these children's minds and expect them to be normal growing up or not be extra confused, like I feel like, some of us may have been, physically molested, but there's also, like all this sexualization of everything, like people who want like cartoons, regular ass cartoon characters to be kissing or whatever like that. Like stop mentally, emotionally molesting children. That's what you're doing. You're projecting yourself onto cartoons and stuff that are supposed to be innocent fun, and it's like the whole atmosphere about sexuality is just getting all muddled, and it's going to create way more issues down the line than good. Like it's not even good intentions to even do this. I don't understand what's even the point either. It's like, and it's like, it's people who don't even have children who do this kind of stuff too. It's always like, it's always someone with no kids who always like is trying to do something to impact children in a way negatively. Not to say there aren't people without kids who impact children positively. We should encourage more of that behavior, but we can't just you can't sneak in the negative stuff because of your own mentality. But going where I'm getting at is, this stuff happens in a cycle, obviously, and we have to like cut the cycle where it's at right now. You know, it's like we're in a generation, this generation right now. I mean, I'm 27, so if you're about my age or whatever, but you know, we felt it. We already have felt the pain of it. So we have to do more to keep it from happening. And fighting each other is not the way it's going to happen, of course. People just have to, realize they're adults in a way, or, adults as far as, on this plane of existence. But yeah, we have fully matured bodies, and because of that, our minds are matured as well. And we understand the consequences of our actions a lot more than children do. So we have to really need to protect children, most of all. I feel like if you're an adult at this point, if you're an adult and you still are having issues about this, I don't see why. I mean, if you're an adult, you need to go to therapy at this point. If you're still dreading about, your past, and it just, you have to. But as far as the why this links back to the masculinity problem is that, men, it seems like there's this issue of fatherlessness and just, not good dads out here. And I think that's the issue that's where a lot of our problems come from, just poor fathers and lack of, and people who, and men who take advantage of that position as well. Like, it's another disgusting thing. Like, how dare you take advantage of, like, orphans, basically. Because if you're fatherless, you're an orphan, basically. Because if your mother has to work all the time, no one's raising you properly. So, you're and then you are being raised by other children in the streets or whatever. In some cases, at least. Or either you're raising yourself, which is not much better, it seems. You're just definitely a wild animal at that point. But yeah, so, and then there's also, the whole complex of if it's a single mother raising like a boy, for just to say, the son has no sense of how to be a man or how to be masculine or what to do with his aggressive tendencies. Like I catch myself so much. I don't want to stop my son from expressing himself honestly as well. So I try to stay hands off in that way. But the problem with I'll be frank, like my issue is, my husband didn't have that sort of I don't know if he's gained like a proper control of his own like aggressive side. Because I think for men, especially black men, it's either you get to be all the way aggressive, because if you show any sign of weakness, it's it's gay or you're whatever, instead of just being instead of just being like a well-balanced being, or it's either you get to dim it out completely just so you don't come off as scary to others, you know? And then you end up getting taken advantage of by people who want you in a weakened state. And then you have to, you submit your aggression away to labor for someone else, and then you end up being not useful in a protective role. You can't even protect, if you don't have the ability to be aggressive, you can't be protective, like my husband thinks I'm so mean all the time, or people think I'm so mean all the time, when I know sometimes I can be overly aggressive. That's something I'm working on, whatever. But he doesn't use his aggression properly at all. So, and I think that's an issue of men in general. Like, they don't know how to control their aggression in a way that's healthy. It can be done creatively, I suppose, in the arts, or, I think I was watching a documentary about African people, or people moving to Africa, and a woman, they mentioned, the hybridity of the careers they can have out there. Like, the example the lady put out was a guy who's like a lawyer and also like a rap artist at the same time, and it works together. But that wouldn't really work in America, because in Western civilization they want you to be specialized into one thing. But I think that is it's not a good outlet of energy. They want to work you to the bone and not give you time to nurture yourself. And so when a man isn't also very aggressive either, he's much more like a child than anything else. And I think this is why there's this idea of waiting till a man is like over 30 to even be marriable, which might be more true than not, but just so that he has more time to grow and learn about himself and about his tendencies. Because, women tend to know their own tendencies by the time they get to 30. They definitely know by the time they get to 30, because, women want to have at least, biologically speaking, most women would want to have a child by 35, right? So, it would be, it would just be much more helpful for them to just, that's not where I want to use, it's the middle of the night. Like, men just need that time to grow, really. They need to fully mature and fully understand who they are and realize who they are in this world before they try to settle down with a woman and try to make a family without even knowing who they are first. And women need to do that too as well. And we can't undo what's already happened to us, of course, but we can make it better for the future. There's no reason to hold on to grudges and keep our own just keep spreading the pain instead of creating more happiness, I suppose. Like, you can't get happiness out of pain, obviously, and that's why we have all these sick fetishes today now, right? But you can't keep obsessing over the bad stuff, because you're gonna keep manifesting it. And when we really need to be acting out in this world that keeps the bad stuff from happening again. And then, it'd be the people who would be like, oh, well, people act like this regardless of what we do, kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, if you keep acting that way and you don't, it's a process. It's just time takes time. And, a lot more people are just going to keep getting hurt if no one makes any real action, and people have to take up some responsibility for this. Like, children Like, there's so many foster children out there who are getting abused in the system, who get taken by fucking creepos who want to abuse them, or, you know, all this sorts of stuff, that all this horrible stuff that's going on in the world. And it can only be stopped by good people, you know, like, only good people can stop it. That's just it. So, I mean, I have a few. The only solutions I have is to, you know, protect children of all you can. Stop fighting amongst each other and focus on, like, the important thing, which is that children need to be protected, you know? And when children are protected, that means women are protected. And that means men are protected. That means we're all protected. You know, when we all bring each other into God's light, of course. You know, bring everyone out into the light together. And we can protect each other when it gets dark. You know, keep each other from harm. I was going to make it a point about the masculine, the feminine, that you know, we, in raising children, we to allow the masculine and feminine, the natural energies of their being to come to life naturally. And that means having, like, you know, good examples of both. So when men aren't displaying their proper, when men aren't balanced and when women aren't balanced, you know, the children come out imbalanced as well. And, you know, only so much can we balance. Or, you know, like, it has to be, the teamwork has to be, you know, divided evenly. Otherwise, you know, imbalance. And imbalance leads to chaos. And all that kind of and all the stuff that goes with that. And I was making the dragon princess analogy earlier, and the dog child analogy earlier for men. Someone posted earlier about how, you know, if men are men, you know, we don't have to worry about, you know, if good men are good men, you know, good. But if a man is acting like a child, you're not attracted to a child. You shouldn't be, at least. And so if you're a grown man acting like a child, you know, that shows you're seeking a feminine balance in your life. You want to be nurturing, actually, but you want to be nurtured. And so, you know, men get caught up in relationships with women who are willing to be nurturing to them, you know, because women were just naturally nurturing creatures. But women aren't made to nurture men. We're made to nurture children. So it creates, and this is where the psychological traumas come out, where, or gets created, you know, because, you know, something goes haywire in someone's brain, and, you know, they lash out like a child, but they're lashing out as a grown man or as a grown adult like a child. And that's not pretty. Definitely not pretty. You know, that's why we see these stories of women who get abused or victims of domestic violence, and they still go back to their man because they still see him as a child who's someone who needs to be nurtured, when he's really just someone who needs to grow up some more. And women, you know, we don't really have that issue, but women have this issue of, you know, we don't forget, and we're rather, I don't know what to say, but like, it's like we want to be nurturing and we want to be gentle, but we have this side to us that comes out because we have this nurturing side, because it needs to be there to be protective. But people aren't understanding, how to deal with those feelings, or how to deal with those, how to deal with the dynamic in a healthy way. Like, I don't know, I'm just rambling. So, like, here's like a image I'll paint. So, if the woman is the dragon and the princess on, where's the camera? Stop doing that. So the dragon and the princess are the duality of women, right? The very soft, delicate, feminine, traditional feminine image we have. The dragon is the aggressive monster destroyer, especially when it comes to children. It's like those are the two just definitely the two dynamics children see of their mother. I'm sure it's like one side is very pretty and nice and kind, and the other side is don't fuck with her, right? I think the properly integrated dragon princess is the queen archetype, and probably even, and then above that is obviously the goddess archetype, right? But when you're, if you're in an imbalanced, if your dragon princess is imbalanced, then you become a nymph. And there's a reason why nymph is short for, is the derivative of nympho and nymphomaniac. It was like a woman who succumbed totally to her, I guess, not natural, but animal urges, or animal self. And then and I guess there's like the woman who becomes like overly nurturing towards, like, for these shitty dudes out here. And then for the man, it's either he's like a child who lashes out, or he's a dog who runs around over the place. And you can, and then when you evolve, you become like, I don't know, I'd rather let men handle that and what they should be, but like a wolf leader, a wolf pack leader would be a good example, I think, because then you have, you're the protector of your entire pack, right? And then, but you're also not overly aggressive, and you understand where your aggression needs to end. Jordan Peterson had talked about this, I believe, like he definitely did, about how wolves will fight, or wolves or dogs will fight, and then one gives up, and like he has a funny line of being like, I'm not gonna tear your throat out because I'm gonna need you later, right? That's what he says. But I think it's the same concept of when we hear about guys who get into fist fights and can be best friends afterwards. That's the wolf mentality. And then women who get into fights and can't be friends anymore, that's the dragon mentality. Yeah, I think that's fitting. So we have to understand these energies to make them work. And like, we just really need to come to understanding about what it means to be a man and a woman these days, even more. But more than that, just our masculine and feminine energies within us. the polarities within us, because no one person is all the way on one end of each other. And I think we get confused in these labels. Gosh, labels everywhere. People have a label for everything nowadays. But people get too caught up in this in the complexification of all these crazy labels that are more detrimental than helpful, honestly, because it's just making these more confusing and it's not addressing the real issue at the core, which is people don't know, or people aren't well informed about who they really are. I mean, for me, I feel like I know for a fact I definitely lean more masculine than feminine. I've always known that. But culture and I don't know, just my own traumatic history, of course, has made my balance all over the place, whatever. But I think if we start addressing it in this frank way about, how is my energy being expressed, or how is, our being expressed, we could, really solve these issues that we really have without being so negative, I guess. That's the word I guess I'll use. Or, yeah, because it's just painful to see now. Just how people are so back and forth, but not addressing the issue at hand. And, I feel like I feel like it's a domino effect. Like, we can't just jump straight to the end. So, like, as much as I would love to see, like, human trafficking stop, like, right this moment. I mean, it could probably start right this moment if people just spoke up, or if people just realized that the value of $1 is not worth more than a human life. So once that gets addressed openly, or it gets understood, we could really start making progress in this world. And that's how I really feel, and that's the truth, honestly. There's no other way to put it. But yeah, thanks for listening to another ramble of mine.